So hello, bonjour, Tansi, bonjour. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn with the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation. My name is Sandra Bender. I'm the Community Engagement and Education Program Coordinator with the NCTR. Before I turn it over to our three honored speakers today, I'm just here to share a little bit of housekeeping. First, there will be simultaneous translation into French throughout the conversation. To access this, you just need to switch to the French channel, which is under the globe button called Interpretation. Just to repeat that in French, il y aura une traduction simultanée en français sous le bouton appelé Interprétation. Vous pouvez trouver ce bouton sous le globe ou peut-être dans les trois points appelés More. Pour le français, s'il vous plaît, changez la chaîne maintenant. So we're very pleased to be partnering with Shapeshifter as our tech support this year, and they will be adding ASL interpretation to the videos afterwards, which will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. So watch for those in the coming days or weeks. I'm not sure of the schedule, but we're very pleased to have that support. You will note that this is a webinar setup, which means that your cameras and microphones are not enabled. The chat function is also not enabled. So I'll just say now, there is no point putting your hand up because we cannot unmute you, but you can put your questions in the Q&A. We just have an hour and there are a lot of people on, which is wonderful, but it means that we'll have time for maybe 5 or 6 questions. So if you have a burning question that didn't get answered and you would like an answer, feel free to reach out to the same email address that you got your Zoom link from, or to the NCTR general email box that you can find on our website, and we will get you an answer. So the National Center for Truth and Reconciliation is located in Treaty 1 territory, which you can see behind me, the city of Winnipeg. This is the ancestral land of the Anishinaabe, Inninewak, Anishinaabe, Dene, and Dakota and Red River Métis Nation. We are located in a province that sources its power from dams on the enormous river systems of the North in Treaty 5. We drink water that comes from Shoal Lake in Treaty 3. For all of us joining from across Turtle Island, we would invite you to take a silent moment to consider the First Peoples whose lands these have always been and always will be, with or without regard for those treaty agreements. As we enter today's discussion, I invite you to open your minds, hearts, and spirits that we may speak truth, hear truth, and move forward together in better paths. So with that said, it's now my honor to introduce today's speakers. We have with us today 2 residential school survivors, Jacquie Bouvier, who was a member of the National Advisory Committee's Circle of Survivors, I believe you were called, the National Advisory Committee on Missing Children and Unmarked Graves. That's the full name of that body. Francis Dickie Yuzicapi, who's a residential school survivor also, and a member of the NCTR's Survivor Circle, also a renowned international chef. And our moderator today, who will also be speaking for himself, is Bryton Bigelow, who actually runs ground searches. So thank you all for being here. I'm so looking forward to this conversation. Bryton, take it away.
Hello, everybody. My name is Bryton Bigelow. I'm just going to quickly go over how this conversation is going to move forward. We're each going to share our experiences and our connection with the truth behind ground searches. So I'd like to thank the NCTR for having us all come speak our knowledge on the truth behind ground searches. And without further ado, I'd like Jacquie to present her knowledge on missing children and unmarked burials.
Hello, I am honored and thank you for asking me to speak. Jacquie Bouvier. I was born in Beauval, Saskatchewan, Treaty 10 territory. I attended third-generation survivor. I attended Beauval La Plonge Indian Residential School. I attended Alacrosse boarding school first, and then I attended the Bouvier Indian Residential School, and then the day school right at the grounds of the Bouvier. I was asked to sit on the National Advisory Committee in 2022. The year before that, I was looking at my mom's papers. She never talked about the baby sisters that are buried in the unmarked graves in the Bouvier Residential School Mission. We call it the Bouvier Mission. There's a graveyard there. In August of 2023, there was a news conference, 93 unmarked burials were found, and sitting on the National Advisory Committee, we have the whole anthropologists, everybody else there, mental health workers, archives. So I started working. It was my mom's dying wish to find the baby sisters. I have a brother in the United States who's 60 Scoop, who was taken from my mom's arms. We just found him after my mother passed away. So I started working on, that was the main thing for me, was to search for the sisters. I spoke at the office of the interlocutor meeting gathering that they had, and started the works. It's a long process. Had to go through the archives in St. Boniface, and she had said they are buried there somewhere. I spoke at a panel we had a gathering in March of 2024, and I spoke to the lady that was the project head for the Bouvier Indian Residential School Coming Home program. They had done the search already by USCI, part of the University of Saskatchewan. Kayla is the coordinator of that search party. Went in May with the gatherings. I had a meeting in May of 2024. Went to Bouvier, had meetings with the elders, the search team, and they brought in the S4 probe to do the search. Elders and I did the ceremony. The elders did the ceremony, and I spoke to the elders that were alive that knew my mother. And my father worked for the Indian Residential School, and he was known by the elders and the community of English River. When they started the probe, we gathered around, we did the ceremony. Then the probe broke down. They went a few inches over, and then it broke down because of the soil, or I'm not sure. So I called my brother and I said, maybe this is a sign, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. He said, no, continue on doing it. So they had to send for the part. So it was I had different thoughts and feelings, and not angry, but I said to myself, is this a sign or something? And then the probe was fixed. Went in May of 2024. Was it May 20? And the probe was fixed, and it was done in 1 week. I was there every day with the elders. We were there every day while the search was done. And we need, as survivors that are watching, what they are doing in the search, you need health support. And the people that are doing the search need to be able to, I know they have feelings, I know they're busy, but I was told by a search, I hope you have health support. This was the first time, because we believe the heads are over here. So that really, these are babies. These are babies. One was 6 months, one was 8 months. So that really, 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 my mental health, everything else went, and I spoke to an elder, and then the next search was done, and it was finished, and I was there every day. While the search was done, there was threats. There was threats. There was gunshots. We heard gunshots on the last day. We had to leave the graveyard. I had a ceremony with an elder, and they had a ceremony. They had a sweat when it was finished. And so I said, when will the report come? So the report came, and they were doing more searches. Went back the end of May. The search was done, and they had 95 markings. And we had a ceremony. We put the markers down the end of May as they continue on doing the school grounds. There's detections of 63 so far, and they were supposed to do more work, but the forest fires delayed that, so I guess they will be starting. So it's not over yet. I said to my baby sisters, I said, finally. I said to my ancestors, Mama, your wish is coming true. I am grateful for NCTR and the National Advisory Committee. I wouldn't be here and speaking about this, and who knows, the sisters would be still lying there if it wasn't for where I was, and with the Creator's help and my ancestors helping me. I don't know if I don't know if I just said finally. We had the ceremony, a lot of tears. We put the markings down, beautiful markings. And I'm going to have a ceremony next spring, finalize after they're done the search of the school grounds. I don't want to go and do the ceremony while they're still searching. They have a lot of work to do where the school grounds were. When that's finished, then I will have a ceremony for my sisters and my brothers coming in from Nevada. That's where he lives. And I have another brother that lives in Saskatoon who's 85. I'm the baby of 11 children. My mom never spoke about what happened to her. She was a strong Roman Catholic. She died when she was 92. She spoke 5 different languages. She was a proud Dene woman. I never met my grandma, but she was in that residential school also. I want to share what I wrote at our first meeting at the National Advisory Committee. I'm looking forward to the day when I finally find my baby sisters and know that they are at rest. I want there to be a ceremony. I want to make sure that their resting place is never forgotten. and it will be never forgotten. Thank you.
I go say thank you, Jacquie. We're gonna let Francis Dickie take the floor now.
Mataki. Hello, everybody. Tansei Buju. Everybody in the room listening. My given name was Francis Richard Yuzicapi. That's what my parents called me. But I'm actually named after an old army buddy of my dad's, so they gave me the name Dickie. So that was my name ever since. So basically, everybody knows me by Dickie. Now, I was given up at a very young age, and I was given to my mom's grandparents. And I always say I am who I am because of residential school. You see, my great grandparents, Alec and Maggie Nookshirs from Okanese First Nation, had 14 kids. All 14 kids went to residential school and lost their ability to speak in their languages. So when their oldest son was old enough, he signed up to go to World War II. And before he shipped off the war, he went to 5 different parties. Now, the reason I'm telling this story is this ties everything in. So he went to 5 parties, went off to war. He died a few days after D-Day, and then, 6 months later, baby 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 were born. And when those ladies' husbands came home from war, they gave those babies up to my great grandparents, and they had 5 new babies that they then again, when they're around 4 years old, knock at the door, priest, RCMP, they took their kids and shipped them off. Second generation of kids that went to Labret Indian Residential School. Now, while my mom and dad went there, they didn't know each other at the time. They both went to the same school. My mom's parents went, my dad's parents went. So after years of, how would I say, growing up with my great grandparents, they passed away, and I went to the same school as well. So at the time, I didn't know all the stories of my parents. I didn't know all the stories of my aunts and uncles, grandaunts, granduncles. But over the years since, I picked up all the stories, heard what they did, and then I went to school. I experienced a lot of things at the school too. Now the difference is when I went to Labret School, it wasn't run by the church; it was run by the First Nations, but it was still the same building. When the lights go out at night, that's when the spirits come out, and you hear them. Little voice in the dark, crying, little hands on you throughout the night, little cold hands waking you up. Sometimes you hear those heavy footsteps going through your dormitory. Those priests and nuns were still there. The spirit of them were still in that building. I was there for 7.5 years, and in 7.5 years, I did not have 1 full night of sleep. I was woken up at some point in time. Now, after I left the school, that's when you, as they say, reckon with what you went through, what you lived, what you experienced. So through that, I went to, ceremonies, jumped directly into culture, which I already knew because I was taught that from when I was a little kid. But I embraced it. And from there, I start talking to my parents. First my dad, then my mom, back and forth. And little by little, they did start telling their stories of what they went through. And then when my dad took sick and before he passed, he asked me, he said, I want you to listen. So I took a tape recorder and we taped him, 48 hours worth of tapes of him telling the stories of what he went through when he was at school. And the thing is, it's, how would I say, very difficult to hatch, to understand. And if you didn't experience it or know about it, people would say that's not real. And I could see them saying, yeah, that's not real. The deniers and stuff like that. See, my dad, he witnessed many burials where he actually had to dig holes for his fellow students and bury them. He told stories of when the priests were getting rid of bodies in the wintertime, they cut a hole in the ice and they just dropped the bodies in the water, And if you think about it, they didn't bury these kids in boxes or coffins. They just wrapped them up in a sheet and put them in the ground and buried them. There is no fighting the elements. So in time, those bodies broke down very quickly. And when it comes to small babies and young children under the age of 10, the bone structure is not there for it to last that long. So when these deniers go out there and say, we want to see the evidence, we want to see the bodies, we want to see this, well, there's not much of it left. It doesn't mean it wasn't there. It's definitely there. You can feel it when you walk into those those schoolyards, you can sense it's there. Some schools had burial sites, an actual, per se, graveyard. Otherwise, they tried to hide it from everybody, so they buried them wherever. Somewhere on the ground, sometimes off the school grounds, like at Lebret. There's several places where they buried the dead. Sometimes it was where the fields were, where they agriculturally grew their fields. On the edge of there's some there, there's some in the schoolyard, all over. You know, after they did the ground search at Lebret, there's like over 2,000 anomalies in the ground. Not all their bodies, some are this, some are that, but some are. And the thing is, they went off of everybody survivor's story of where they buried a body, where they remember there was a grave. That's what they went on. And that's where they did the searches. And they found stuff at all those locations. But now it's at the point that they got to think about it. You know, do they want to excavate it? Do they want to, you know, unbury it? And then there's a whole bunch of other variants that come into play with that. Like, how are they going to test who it is? That's, you know, extremely expensive. On the other side of it is, do we want to disturb them at their rest? Some elders say we should do this and send them home, and then some elders would take and say, no, we'll just mark them, give them recognition so that they're there, and we know they're there, and we recognize they're there. So we honor them in that way, that they stay there. Now, I'm going to go back to some of the stuff that happened to me when I was at school. So it's like 1989, pretty close to the end of the school year. I was out on the running around on the track, and I was coming off the track. And at the time, my mom worked at the school too. So this is kind of a funny thing. My mom went through so much stuff and so much bad abuse at that school because she was what we call a relentless runner. Every time she'd run away from school, they'd grab her, drag her back to school, give her a licking, and put her back into school. So they did that over and over and over. And, you know, she was only there for, they say, 8 years, but really in reality, she was there for 10 because you're there for 2 years just to break your language. That's what they did before they even started school. And these schools were more, how do I say, free labor than that was actual school. But they did teach you a little bit here and there. So just getting it to that, through all the abuses my mom took, she went back to the school to become a seamstress and, you know, work in the girls department, in the seamstress matron department of the school. So this one day she went into work and she was driving her car in the parking lot, and her car sunk in a sinkhole. That was like 7:30 in the morning. She was pulling into work. At about 3 o'clock, when they finally got the tow truck to lift that car up, when they lifted the car and moved it, there was a hole in the parking lot. Just so happened I was walking by there, and a whole bunch of students were walking by too. And one of the caretakers had a flash and said, "Hey, Dickie, yeah, check that hole out." So I jumped in, and that's where I found the tunnels. You know, there's always a rumor that there was tunnels from the school to where the old priest's house was. You know, if you ever watch a movie, We Were Children, it's based on one of my uncles, Glenn Anaquad's story. And it shows that in that movie, when they retold his story, that kids were allowed to go home for a week, go spend time with their parents. In reality, they didn't. They put them down in that tunnel and tortured them. Well, we found those tunnels. The first room, there's a bunch of implements and stuff like that, prayers, stools, that kind of stuff. And each wall is separated by a barn door that you pulled and run by a track moving to the next, to the next, to the next one. There's 2 rooms heading east from where we were, and they had hooks on the wall where people were tied up. You know, when you walked into that room, there was a heaviness that you can't understand. And the thing is, when I walked through that room, it bothered me. It's over 35 years ago that I was down there, and it still bothers me. You know, you have that heavy feeling like, damn, you know, our people were tortured there. Our kids were tortured. And this is all on the church, all this, you know, and they make it like they did no wrong. Well, damn it, they did wrong. Lots of it. You see those priests that are still alive, there's still priests and nuns that are still alive that were our abusers. And they're, you know, in France in a monastery being hidden by the church. We can't take them. We can't do anything to them. They're just going to sit there, and the church is protecting them. You see, the way I see it is that, you know, you do the crime, you get the punishment. That's how it should be. That's settler law. But we have our own laws. You know, that's the one thing that residential school did not do. Yeah, they broke the circle of hope for all of us. Like they taught our moms and our dads and our grandmas and grandpas not to be moms and dads. But we're resilient people. And the thing is, by looking at me, what I've seen, what I experienced at those schools, you know, I bottled it up, put it in my heart, closed it off. When we came out of those tunnels, you know, our elders stood us to the side and they smudged us and they told us never to speak of it. Well, all those elders are gone now. Not of the men that went down there, the young men that went down there, there's like 2 or 3 of us that are left. And the thing is, I'm not holding back. I'm telling, you know, sharing what I've seen down there. And the thing is, like last night before I went to bed last night, I lifted my chanupa, my pagan, my sacred pipe, and I prayed and smoked it so that I can do this without breaking down. I can talk with an open heart and let it be. And the thing is, a lot of people look at me and they'll say, you know, oh, put it on a strong face, you know, or you're talking like it doesn't bother you. You haven't seen what I've seen. You haven't experienced what I've experienced. It's like, for instance, you know, you're having your parents always tell you, I love you. You know, less than 5 times I heard that from my mom, just because, you know, what she went through. Doesn't say my mom didn't love me. She just didn't see it, couldn't say it. At least I didn't hear it. But the thing is, by experiencing these and seeing the stories, hearing the stories, experiencing the land, experiencing what you've seen, you know, I'd like to talk to some of those deniers in one way or another. Because, you know, you can deny all you want, but we have our truths. Now, I was nominated to go sit on the NCTR Survivor Circle. A friend of a friend that sent my name in. Next thing you know, I got a phone call. I actually got a phone call from Stephanie, and she said, oh, we'd welcome you to come and join our group. And I'm like, I didn't even know what the heck was going on, but hey, that's how it goes. So I went with it. So now I sit on that national board, and this is our job now. We don't get paid for it. But the thing is, when we talk about this stuff, about residential school, IRS, and searching for our loved ones that have been taken from us and buried somewhere, you know, this is not a light subject. This is our history. Those children were our aunties, our uncles, our grandmas, our grandpas, because some of them passed away a long time ago, and we're looking for them. What we want to do is take them home and like tell the whole world, like, they're here. We're looking after them. We found them. Try to deny that, you know? That's how it is. And the thing is, like, we have people in our own people that fight us on this as well. Like, I know a lot of people who went through residential school and said nothing ever bad happened to them. Well, good for you. Nothing bad happened to you. But some of us, you know, we've seen it, we experienced it, we lived it. And the thing is, when it comes down to it, it depends on the size of our heart, how much we can take, how much we can give, and how much of the truth we can shovel out and tell the people, look, this is real. This is what happened. And over the years, talking to elders about this subject, they always say different things. Like, for instance, they say, well, when you're looking for those mass graves, they won't be shown, but nature tells the way. Mother Earth tells us where they are. You just got to know what you're looking for. When I asked an elder, what do you mean by that? And he said, you know, he said, when they have a mass grave and they put lots of bodies in one place and they bury them down, he said, there's a lots of nutrients that's in that particular area. He said, that's where the wild bush takes over and lots of trees will come out of that. He said, when you start seeing those big, massive trees close to those schools, there's a reason. And another one too is sometimes they put them in rows. So when they buried, they put saplings on top of them and bury those trees within amongst the trees, and the trees would grow tall in rows. So the thing is you got to look and feel a different way when you're looking for these graves. And the thing is, it's sometimes the easiest way is just follow your heart. It'll tell you where they are. Listen, look, because that's what the spirits are doing, because they're calling you. They're saying, come find me. I'm here. Come look.
Mhm.
So we open our eyes and we look, follow our hearts, and we'll find. That's the way it was explained to me. Sometimes, being who I am and what I experience, sometimes the anger is always there. A lot of times I have to hold back on it and open my eyes and open the heart and let it be. So that's what I'm saying today. I said what I said. I experienced what I experienced. I'm holding back on some of the stuff that I saw down there. It's just, there's a time and a place for it. And if they want to talk to me about it, that's fine. It's just some stuff that happened and I seen in those tunnels is on the harsh and hard side to talk about. So the easiest way to do it is just when someone wants to know, then I'll say. But other than that, I'd like to say thank you for this opportunity to speak my words to everybody here. Thank you.
I go say thank you, Dickie. My name is Bryton Bigelow. I'm from Cranberry Portage, Manitoba. I work for Cree Nation Tribal Health Center in Opashkagat Cree Nation, the PA, Manitoba. And I'm the program coordinator for the Natuna Watanikawasisik Let's Find the Children project. We've been at this project for 2 years now. And I'm just going to quickly, I could talk lots about this, but I could quickly go over the steps that we're taking up to date on our project. One of the first things is we've done when doing this work is having some ceremonies. We had a shake tent ceremony, night lodge ceremony, pipe ceremony, sweat lodge ceremonies. When doing the search and starting off, we always start off with the protocol and bringing in the ceremonies, and working with spirits and missing children, unmarked burials. You'll connect with the land, the spirits, everything. And so we always start with ceremony to get that direction. After we completed our ceremonies and we started doing this work, we started off doing ground penetrating radar. The school site I work at is Guy Hill Indian Residential School, located at Clearwater Lake Provincial Park. When doing our initial GPR, we uncovered 241 anomalies. It was a high number, kind of freaked me out, to be honest, but I knew I needed to do more work to confirm and understand that these weren't 241 unmarked burials. So we sent in our data from the GPR and we had it looked at. And when it got looked at by our geophysics people, they indicated that there wasn't enough consistencies to prove that these were unmarked burials. So I had to really brainstorm, what other search techniques can I use to confirm this? Yes, there's S4, LiDAR, a lot of technologies like that, but the route we chose was the human remains detection dogs. So the next step that was taken in place that we did was go over the 241 anomalies with the human remain detection dogs. And at the end of the search, we were left with one alert from the human remain detection dogs. So it took away 240 potential points of interest and narrowed it down to just one. With the ceremonies and stuff we do, our pipe carrier there, our elder, he received a children's bundle. And when he received this bundle, he got a dream one day. And in that dream, he was taken to a spot located on our residential school grounds. And when he was taken to the spot, his dream and his vision indicated that there was something there. And that's why it's so important to do ceremony. Because you'll get these dreams, these visions. And when we brought the human remain detection dogs into this area, we determined another alert. So that brought us to 2 alerts on our school site for human remains. A lot of the direction that was taken at the time was from the survivors at all our gatherings, like search in this area, search over here. And we got to the point where, okay, well, there's a lot of hearsay. A lot of people are telling us to search here, search here. And when coming up short in one potential spot in a forest area, we have to regroup and say, how are we going to gather information? How are we going to find out if anybody's missing? Um, so we So our team went out to the 37 communities. We're still in the process of connecting with most of the communities. I think we connected with 10, 11 communities to gather information. But we broke it up into calling it a map truthing exercise, where we had several area photos of Guy Hill Residential School and its grounds. And survivors would circle an area and give us a reason why they want that area searched. We also go into the communities because it's important to have accurate information. So with our student list and quarterly returns, we go out into communities and we sit there and say, did this person make it home? Did this person make it home? And we want to ensure that everybody's made it home from their home community. With there being 2 potential points of interest on our site, going through this student list is crucial, because it will determine if anybody's missing. And it'd be up to the families and working with the families on these potential points of interest. That's what brings up us into this next. We just finished a field search on Saturday, closed it on Sunday with a pipe ceremony. When doing this work, like, it's really hard. And when we went into the communities, we got to the grassroots level of the survivors, asking them where to search. We got pointed to this direction from the survivor there. And when doing the work this weekend, the human remains detection dogs accurately alerted at this potential spot. And if it wasn't for going into the communities, getting that answer from the survivors, we wouldn't be, finding these spots right now. We wouldn't be that accurate. So going into the communities, working with the survivors, getting the accurate information, that's what the goal is. You really want to take the time, and it's a hard process. It's a slow process, but you take the time, you'll come up with results. And that's what we did this past weekend. Some of the steps moving forward, yet again, there's so many search techniques out there. GPR in the forest area. You could clear the trees, you could GPR in there, but it's not going to give you accurate information due to all the roots in the ground. You'll pick up lots of roots, and you don't want to falsely pick up another 300 anomalies and it just being roots. We thought about doing the S4 as well. Yes, the S4 works, but it can identify if it's human bones, animal bones, but it does pick up the fatty acids and indicate there are bones there. With the human remains detection dogs, yes, they could pinpoint out areas, but you don't 100% know until you exhume. You have to exhume to identify what is underneath there, what is underneath the ground. So moving forward, yes, when excavating, babies and children's skeletons can survive for years. It all depends on the soil, where it's located, the soil type. Our anthropologist that we work with, she's really good, and she's excavated babies that are around 200 years old, and that was in Greece. So it is possible, but it all matters on the soil level and where our sites are located. So moving forward in our project, our end goal is exhuming these spots due to the fact that there is no known cemetery on our residential school site. So everything we find is an unmarked burial. But you got to do that steps. It's a long process. You can't just go exhume. and see what's under the earth. You really have to identify the families, figure out who we're looking for, what community they come from. Each community has different protocols on what it looks like to send a child home. So there's a lot to it moving forward. The groundwork, the confirming the student list, the map truthing exercise, that's just a little part in what needs to happen moving forward in uncovering the truth in unmarked burials and missing children. And it takes time. Yes, we want to rush it. Yes, we want to do this work and do it for the survivors that are, a lot of survivors are passing on, and we want to ensure, we do the work for them. But also we got to take our time. We got to make sure everything's accurate. So I know our team has a lot of work ahead of us. We got to travel to more communities, gather that information, look at new points of interest of where to search next, and try to figure out this whole puzzle. A lot of the archives, the stuff you find, the colonial archives, it's really hard to work with. They won't tell you exactly where someone's buried, if there's anything like that on the land, and that's why I value so much of going into communities and hearing those stories from the survivors themselves. I really value them. So that's just a little update on the work I do, where we're at in our project, the search techniques we used, and one thing when we're dealing with the land, everything has a spirit out there. Everything's living, and it's important to listen to the land, the wind, the water, the trees, the birds. Those spirits will lead you to where you need to be, and on the land and finding points of interest. So, I really appreciate the land, the water, the people, the survivors. And I want to give a shout out to my crew. It's really hard work doing this stuff, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. But I know we're doing the good work. I know we have the results, especially in our last search. Everything matched up so perfect, and it's like Creator said, you guys are doing a good work. Keep it going. Doing this work, there's no training. You kind of have to learn as you go. So I valued going to the NCTR, working with them, getting records from them. I really appreciated going to the National Advisory Committee's conferences, because you meet people, you tell them your story, and you figure out that you're not alone on this journey, and there's other people doing the work, having the same struggles. Self-care is really much needed when doing this work, and I'm glad I have a good crew I could talk to. As a man, emotionally, it's hard to talk about these things. So, I'm really appreciative to having my crew to sit down and say, okay, this is how I feel. This is what I'm feeling. This is how it's, whether if I let out a little cry or let out a little laugh, I'm glad to have that support from my team to support each other, eh? But yes, my name is Bryton Bigelow. I work for Cree Nation Tribal Health. I could talk about my this work, like I said, all day, but feel free to look for me, reach out for me. I'm happy to reach out and talk to anybody and share the work I do. So, Miigwech, thank you for your time. Thank you, Jacquie and Dickie, for sharing your stories. And I'm sending prayers to everybody in the news, in the chat feed, the NCTR, all the workers doing this work. I find when we work together and everybody's together, it's a lot easy. So I go say thank you. Now I'm gonna take the time to do some questions. Uh, one of the questions we got here is, you give and do so much to share your stories. And those who can't tell their own, what are the ways you need and receive care when doing this work if you're comfortable sharing? I don't know if Jacquie or Dickie want to hop in on that.
Yeah, I'll do it. All right. The best way to deal with that is you have to, well, for me, in order to talk about anything like that, one, I had to get angry first so I could get it out before I broke down. But time after time, the more you talk about it, the easier it gets. Now, there's a lot of survivors out there, like my mom, when she was still alive, couldn't talk about it. I had granduncles that would not talk about it. And there's a lot of survivors out there, even today, who cannot voice what they went through. They can't voice anything that they witnessed because they buried it so deep inside them that it's going to take way too long for them to bring it out. And then a lot of people who were abused did other things to bury it. So they drank, they turned to drugs, and they buried it so far that now it'll never come out. But advice wise, if someone's going to talk about it, don't judge.
Mhm.
Shut up and listen and let them get it out. It might be ugly, it might be violent, it might be sad. It'll hit every emotion there is. But you, as a person witnessing it, the best thing you can do is just give them a hug at the end because it's them letting it go.
Mhm.
And it's better out than in. That's the way I see it. So I hope that answered you.
And I could throw that in, I could answer a few more to that too. When going into communities, when you want to gather information from survivors, what you don't want to do is break them again. When we go into communities and gather information, we came up with a map truthing exercise. And going into a community saying, okay, we're going to do a statement gathering, information session. Well, we want to record your story. A lot of the survivors went through that, telling their story already with all the abuse. So we wanted to really simplify and strategically plan what's the best way of going into a community, gathering information without breaking the survivors even more. So that's when we came up with this map truthing exercise. And when going into communities, most survivors, there's 80% of the survivors that haven't seen nothing. But that 20% of the survivors that did see something, um, and are opening up, the support is there for them. The health supports, the families, the community, us. But the biggest thing is, like Dickie said, just a hug, you know? It's really simplified of the support, how do I say that? The support we give to the survivors, it doesn't have to be extreme, uncomfortable support. Just a simple hug. Letting the survivors know that we care for them, and the work we're doing is for them. And a lot of the times we get a lot of positive uh outcome from the map truthing just because it doesn't go deep and open up deeper wounds. Now, some of the stories are hard for our staff to bring back home. And I always tell my staff, what do we need, when we hear these stories? How are we gonna heal ourselves so we're not carrying this day by day by day? One of the best things for healing is the truth itself, going out there doing the work for the survivors. Um, and we had a lot of success this last search as that survivor pinpointed a spot out and we accurately hit it. And that was self-care for me. That was healing for me. Knowing we're taking that next step moving forward in truth and reconciliation. For all the doubters thinking that, they're not going to ever find anything, they're not going to do, it really showed that with, working together, we could get a positive outcome. But at times you do need to step away from the job. You do need to take a few steps back. And living in northern Manitoba, some of the best healing for me is being out on the land, you know, getting firewood, fishing, hunting, trapping, you know, getting your mind off, you know, the heaviness and doing good work. Because when you get a moose, you know, you don't keep it for yourself. You give it for the community, and you get a lot of answers back and a lot of good things back from that day. So it's like a whole circle of life. Another question we have here is there are tons of questions about how ground searches are being funded right now and how people can donate. I could talk a little bit about that there. So right now our program is funded through Cernak Missing Children's Fund, and so that's how we're funded yearly. If people want to look that up there, like I said, it's called the Cernak Missing Children's Fund. I'm not going to hop into all the details, but that's how these ground searches are being funded. And how can people donate? I think the best thing you could do is donate your time. Get educated on the ground searches. Come help out. Come support us at the ground searches. You know, that's the best thing I feel is right. When you want to donate, you know, come donate your time. Come support our projects, and there's a lot you could take in and learn from. And I don't know if anybody else wants to hop into that, Dickie or Jacquie.
In the ground searches that are happening in Bouvier, the community comes. It was beautiful to see the community survivors pushing the GPR, and like someone said, the animals that came and watched, eagles flew over the first morning we were there, and there was an owl. I don't know what people think of owls, but there was an owl that came every morning and sat there for at least 4 to 5 minutes when they were doing the search of the school ground. There's a security, they had to get a security where the graveyard is. It's fenced in. They had to get a security company from the area. Indigenous security. There was a lot of deniers and people coming and saying this is not true. But a lot of support, like you said, you know, a lot of support. The community of Beauval, the Métis village, came and supported. Their relatives attended the Beauval residential school. It was beautiful. There was other survivors. They cooked. We had fish fry. They killed a moose. They made dry meat and tanned the hide all during the time we were there. It was just so beautiful. And memories of my ancestors and all the people that have passed came to light with that gathering while ground searching is happening in the cemetery and on the grounds. And on that side was the celebration, not a celebration, but our culture is back. We never had that. And my mom also worked in the industrial part of the basement of the school when she wanted to work in the kitchen, and they put her in the basement, and there's a picture of her in a sewing machine wearing a bonnet and a lab coat, a kind of a white coat. I said, Mama, why are you wearing that? She said they didn't want hair or anything put onto the uniforms that she was making for the nuns and the priests, I guess. Not for the children, it was for the nuns and the priests, whatever they wore. She started to tell me something regarding an abuse in the dorm, but she stopped because I had an angry look on my face. I was 14. So she said, you're getting mad, so I'll stop there. What she was telling me happened to me, and I never shared it to her in later years that the same thing happened to me as what she said, and then some.
Like I say,
Yeah.
one last question. What happens legally once evidence is found? Is there a way to hold the perpetrators to account at this point? That's a really good question. I know when doing this work, there's no blueprint to it. And I think a lot of the time that I'm noticing, there's steps like DNA, sending a child home. What does that look like to send a child home? And then this type of question is, who's accountable? Who's accountable and uh for doing this crime, I should say, because it is a crime. But that's something we got to be patient with and let that time come. It will come through ceremony, doing the work, and finding um out what we find, doing exhumation. So be patient for that question, as there are a bunch of sites doing this work all over Canada, and I don't think anybody's held the churches or anybody uh accountable yet. But as this new work is moving forward and it being an Indigenous-led project, eventually that question is going to be answered. And I do believe somebody should be accountable for this. Absolutely. But we gotta get, like that time will come is all I'm gonna say. But you gotta be patient. Everybody has to be patient when doing this sacred work. Because we want to be accurate, 100% accurate when moving forward, and to make somebody accountable. Let the other Jacquie or Dickie.
Well, when it comes down to it, is they're going to be held accountable when they make their passing to the next spirit world, whatever their beliefs are. So if they actually were, the priests and the nuns, and they actually believed in what the church praises and puts out there, they'll have to answer it at one point in time. It's not all forgiving, because what you did to kids is wrong. And the thing is, they did it to all our kids. The church put the worst people in those schools. And if you think about it, and it comes down to the Catholic Church, it's goes against nature. I mean, you have a priest who says he can't marry, he has to abstain from everything. You have nuns that do the same thing. Well, humans are animals, and they do bad things. And that's how my mom and dad put it to me. That's how my grandparents told it to me, that not everybody is, as they say, godly, because we're still in earth. We're still living here. We're not in heaven, as they say. So that's why a lot of bad things happen to our kids in those schools. Because one, they're taking away our culture, taking away our language, taking away our spirits. So they did other stuff to us too. So all the kids were open to all kinds of abuses, and that's what happened. And result is some of the kids didn't survive, and hence that's why we're looking for their bodies. So that's the only way I can explain that or answer that question. Thank you.
Thank you, all three of you, for the things that you shared today. I know this is a difficult topic. It's difficult work that you're doing, difficult personal sharing. Yeah, there have been so many good questions. There will never be enough time to answer them all. I would encourage anyone who would like an answer, like I said, to reach out to us through the email that you got the Zoom link from, or the general NCTR email. Yes, this recording will be uploaded to YouTube. There will be ASL interpretation added. We also had some tech issues with the stream today again, so that is going to be sorted out. Those videos will be re-uploaded so you can share these this talk far and wide. We don't have a specific timeline, but give it a, let's say, at least a week in the coming days that will become available. Please, if you are in need of support, we shared some supports in the chat earlier. For non-Indigenous folk feeling need of support, there's always the national crisis line at 988. You can text or call. The other supports are specific to Indigenous folk. Bryton, Jacquie, Dickie, we cannot say thank you enough for this important, needed truth. There have been just endless thanks in the Q&A from settlers and survivors and community alike. So an enormous thanks to the three of you for this time. And for everyone who joined us today, thank you so much. Thank you to Shapeshifter and our French interpreter. And we hope to see you in the other Lunch and Learns this week. So again, thank you to everyone so much for coming. Thanks to you speakers. Bye for now.